Hi there. What if I told you that instead of this, which can hold about 4,364 lossless quality songs that are identical to the studio masters, you could have this, which can hold about 11 songs that were imperfectly copied from the studio masters. Also, it's expensive and environmentally taxing to ship. Also, if you get any dust on it, it'll be audible over the recording. Also, if it's too hot, it'll warp. Oh, also, it'll release toxic chemicals into your home until you decide to get rid of it, which you can't because nobody will recycle it. But it's so cool. I'd go as far as calling it, lit, right? I'm sure you've seen the headlines. Vinyl is making a huge comeback. In the mid-2000s, more artists and record labels started putting out vinyl, and subsequently, more people started buying it. This is because artists and record labels want to give their fans the purest and most personal medium available, and music listeners respect the recording process too much to just listen to streaming services or MP3s. No, just kidding. It's probably because crude oil prices has plummeted around the time, making the profit margin on vinyl much higher, just in time before musicians realized that they didn't need to give the royalties to record labels if there was no initial manufacturing costs to cough up. But yeah, the resurgence of vinyl makes for a really nice feel-good story. 11 years ago, in 2008, we first observed Record Store Day, which was not coincidentally championed by these copyright law superheroes. In order to celebrate Record Store Day, one goes to a record store and buys records, usually limited edition reprints of the same shit they've heard over and over for decades. Record stores celebrate Record Day by being obligated to buy inferior merchandise from major labels on a no-return basis. Major labels celebrate it by, skeet shooting $100 bills. We are creatures of habit and we're nostalgic, but sometimes it's good to have a little insight and think about how the music industry used to be 10 or 20 or 30 years ago and how hopeless it was for independent artists. Let's hear a story all about how, about 2 years ago, I wrote a brief blog post explaining why I would not be releasing any more vinyl as a canned response to daily messages I get from my listeners asking for vinyl reprints or vinyl releases. It actually got a bit of attention and it got a whole lot of criticism. In fact, a little claim to fame that I have, the owner of one of the largest record manufacturing plants in the world personally hunted down my email address to call me an idiot. For reasons I will explain, I want to like vinyl, and I welcome criticism as long as it comes in the form of a counter-argument. However, the problem is that in those 2 years since I wrote that, after speaking from everybody to major media outlets, to record labels, to record manufacturers, nobody has supplied me with an actual counter-argument. It's just that it's so lame and uncool to shit on vinyl that people have this guttural reaction of just reaching out to you and being like, yeah, but you're gay. In fact, when researching citations for this video, I kept running into articles that were citing that blog post of mine, creating this insane sort of siteception. While there is no greater honor than T-Mobile's weird electronic music news site citing my blog, I'm also kind of pissed off that I'm seemingly the loudest voice pointing at some of the problems with vinyl. Before we begin, understand that I have nothing to gain here. I'm a professional electronic musician shitting on vinyl LPs. I'm biting many hands that feed me, and I'm kind of coming off with this Al Gore vibe. This is just my objective opinion based on a whole lot of research. And that truth costs me a lot of money, likability, and fans. So if you're an avid vinyl collector whose pee-pee hurts after watching this video, understand that my pee-pee hurts a whole lot more. So let's hold each other's pee-pees. It's a weird metaphor to use. My point is, I've collected vinyl, I've mastered the vinyl, I've created vinyl, and I've profited off of vinyl throughout most of my career. It would be ridiculous for me to scold or judge anybody else for doing that. That's not what this is. I just want to point out the elephants in the room that we've been collectively ignoring ever since this vinyl comeback started. Let's assume that trends and marketing have no grasp over us as consumers. Why spend extra money on this big clunky disc? Well, it sounds superior, right? Well, the thing is, digital audio is superior. Yeah, I said it. We like to think of vinyl as this analog medium that experiences some sort of freedom from audio limitations, but it doesn't. There are huge audio limitations with vinyl. They're just different. Things at the bottom of the audio spectrum, like a kick drum or a bass sweep, take up a huge amount of physical space on the grooves of the record, which neglect the rest of the spectrum. Higher frequencies, such as certain synthesizers or hi-hats, have grooves that are so minuscule that the needle doesn't even register them. Beyond that, If a sound is too loud, then the needle will move back and forth more dramatically, creating distortion. So when you master music for vinyl, you simply cannot be as dynamic as you can with the digital medium. One could argue that the reason they enjoy vinyl is to escape the loudness war, and that's valid, but the medium of vinyl itself is still more restrictive and limiting than a high-quality digital file. When people say that vinyl sounds warmer to them, they're actually right, but they're referencing an inaccurate replication of the actual audio master due to the aforementioned limitations. If that's the case, then carefully adjusting an EQ will accomplish the same results, as will listening to a digital file of a vinyl recording. By the way, I am far from the first person to objectively challenge the sonic allure of analog. Way back in 2000, researchers from the University of Texas and Florida State University conducted an extremely objectively rigorous study where they recorded the same performances from various instruments using both digital and analog recordings, then performed a double-blind test on 40 music majors to see which they thought was better quality. 96% of participants preferred digital mediums, and digital rated higher overall in every single category, whether it was a quality of bass, treble, or a solo piano, or an entire string orchestra, or whether it was listened to on loudspeakers or headphones. I know that more than a few of the people watching this are fervently disagreeing with everything that I just said, because fuck these rigorous peer-reviewed studies. You can tell the difference. You're super special and you can listen to music better than anybody else. The second coming of Christ has finally come to earth in the vessel of your fucking ears. Why else would you have spent $20,000 on 2 speakers and a turntable? Since this is a new thing, there haven't been many peer-reviewed studies, but there have been plenty of double-blind surveys, and most people can't tell the difference between a properly encoded V0 MP3 file and a lossless audio file. For what my ears are worth, I've been hired to master dozens of widely released albums, in addition to my own, and I will happily admit that personally, I can't tell the difference. In the interest of saving time, I'm just going to say this before moving on. I love my job, but my job is spending days, weeks, and even months fine-tuning every tiny thing that someone hears when they hear just one of my songs. Every inaccuracy on that long, convoluted voyage between my studio monitors and your ears robs me of the knowledge that you're hearing the precise details that I hoped you would hear. The real battle for me is not Spotify versus FLAC versus vinyl. It's knowing that the vast majority of people listen to music on cheap earbuds or a Bluetooth speaker from across a reverberated room while dividing their attention with something else. So these giant discs are 40 years obsolete from a technical standpoint. Their value is entirely nostalgic or arbitrary. They're collector's items or decorations, and that's how they have value. And that would be fine if they weren't harming anything, but they are. And the most important of those things that they're harming is you. A record is made out of PVC, or polyvinyl chloride, and the manufacturing process for them is almost entirely unregulated. There's no cute way to say this. PVC has been proven to cause liver cancer, brain cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, nerve damage, observably different immune system reactions, damage to male reproductive organs. Yeah, that's right, they make you impotent. And if you're a female, it's been proven to cause irregular menstruation. This does not even come close to a complete list of alarming health risks. I'm not even going to get into PVC stabilizers such as lead. We're going to ignore the obviously toxic heavy metals such as lead and cadmium because you don't need me to tell you that it's deadly. The big problem here is that PVC degrades over time, and in that time the molecular weight of the polymer is drastically reduced. When this happens, and it is persistently happening throughout the life of the record, the PVC is outgassing and releasing microscopic particles into the air. In an industrial clean room with low-level exposure, the vinyl chloride particles would enter your bloodstream through your lungs and rapidly be delivered through your bloodstream. A portion of the vinyl chloride goes into your liver, which has absolutely no idea what to do with it and starts transforming it into new substances. Within a day or two, vinyl chloride would leave your body through your urine. However, some of those things your liver made, those are never going to leave you. Unfortunately, we don't store or listen to records in industrial clean rooms, so in your home, these microplastic particles act like sponges and soak up persistent organic pollutants, or POPs. POPs introduce so many toxic compounds into your body that I'm not even going to bother listing them, but the ones that PVC tends to get along with the most are dioxins. You may know about dioxins from their use in Agent Orange, or you might recall them being used in the attempted assassination of Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko, which left him disfigured. Super safe stuff. As always, in full transparency, unless otherwise noted, my experiments on this channel are not peer-reviewed and are limited by my own budget and knowledge limitations. At best, if an interesting result is noted, I could only hope that they'd inspire a bigger, well-funded, peer-reviewed, and scientifically sound experiment by an institution capable of having one. For the sake of my own curiosity, I've decided to spend my meager earnings from this channel on a new turntable and an industrial-grade air quality monitor that uses lasers to detect particulate dust bigger than 2.5 microns. If you watched the video up to this point, you know exactly what is in that dust. The monitor also detects total volatile organic compounds and HCHO, or formaldehyde, which shouldn't be an issue here. If it is, then I'm just going to buy a casket and lay in it. I have rigorously calibrated the monitor according to manufacturer specification, and I'm going to leave it in a mostly empty room with a new turntable and camera for about 32 hours. That way, if the new turntable has some sort of degassing to do, it'll stabilize. The only new thing I will be introducing to the room after those 32 hours is what remains of my vinyl collection. I'm pretty anal retentive about air cleanliness, and I've actually installed 2 filters in my HVAC, mostly because I hate dusting. But I obviously will turn my air conditioning off for this experiment so I can rule out any new particles entering the room from the vent. During the test, I will wear a lab coat, mostly because my girlfriend really wants to see me in one, and also because it'll make a great thumbnail for this video. Also, I'm not hooking the turntable up to anything, since that would require me to introduce more gear, or in this case, variables, into the room. Oh, and of course, I deeply cleaned and aired out the room long before introducing the turntable or air monitor. What we're looking for here is any noticeable jump in PM2.5 or PM10, which is the concentration of particulate matter per cubic meter. At levels above 30 for PM2.5 and above 50 for PM10, you begin to have breathing discomfort for sensitive individuals. But remember, we already know that the particulate matter is vinyl chloride, so any increase in particulate matter is probably bad news. A jump in TVOC, or total volatile organic compounds, would be pretty convincing. So as planned, we introduce as little to the room as possible other than vinyl. I'm wearing a mask, so my breathing will have a minimal effect on the environment. My first choice is an old record under an alternate moniker of mine from 2005. I wait for a few minutes, and to my total and utter surprise, the total volatile organic compounds rise and rise, and the formaldehyde levels increase by 6-fold. The monitor does something I didn't even realize it did. It starts beeping to warn me that the air has become unqualified. So, okay, I think something is up here. I stop playing the record and put it back in the box to see if the air monitor returns to safe levels. And it does. So I play a different record, another one of mine from 2006. Within moments, the TVOC levels skyrocket and the alarm is re-triggered. So okay, maybe my records are just overwhelmingly toxic or something, or perhaps it's because these particular records have never been played before. So I grab an old vintage album that I've probably played about 200 times over the last 20 years. I put it on the turntable, and before the needle even touches the record, the TVOC levels trigger the alarm. So for the hell of it, I just pretend to shuffle through records as if I were going through a collection or a DJ crate. The TVOC levels from the degassing is so intense that the air monitor reaches levels unsafe for short-term inhalation. I truly expected this to be a waste of time and money and just a shot in the dark that wouldn't even end up as a segment in the video, but I did not prepare myself for actual results like this that were so alarming to the point where this device would tell me that I'm not even supposed to be breathing the air next to a record. So there's that. I had hypothesized or expected a sort of dust to be released from the stylus needle sliding along the PVC, but it seems like that was completely undetectable. What we experienced here was seemingly degassing, meaning that it happens whenever your vinyl is exposed to fresh oxygen. And yeah, maybe my monitor is broken or way too sensitive, or maybe I'm missing something really, really obvious, or maybe everything science has told us about PVC is right, and I just can't believe it when I see it with my own eyes. Okay, I know what some of you are thinking. You've heard of PVC before. It's that stuff used in pipes. So now you ask, how can PVC be so bad if it's used in our pipes? Well, there are a lot of rules about PVC. In most places, it's only legal to use them when draining sewage, and even that is getting commonly frowned upon. If a new building or structure that is intended to be inhabited by humans isn't using PEX, copper, or polyethylene for drainage, they're using CPVC, which is PVC that has been improved using a free radical chlorination reaction. This replaces some of the hydrogen inside the plastic with chlorine, which increases the tensile strength and the range of temperature the pipe can endure before degrading and releasing phthalates. Even then, if you were too cheap to hire a plumber and your idiot uncle installed PVC for your drinking water without checking building code, there are different grades of PVC that use different stabilizers. By law, PVC pipes cannot use lead as a stabilizer and must be flushed until the phthalates leaching from them are, well, they're still at levels that are toxic to humans over long-term use, but you can check to at least see if they were flushed by seeing the codes NSFPW or NSF61 on the pipes to make sure that they at least meet the requirements. An added bonus or cherry on top of having PVC pipes in your house is that if your home catches fire, they release hydrochloric acid. By the way, if you live in a house built before 1977 that still has original PVC pipes providing you water, you should stop worrying about your record collection and get some new fucking pipes as soon as possible. Now, before you worry about your drinking water, know that I'm quoting studies that come from some weird, obscure groups. What do they call the Center for Disease Control and World Health Organization. Now, they say apparently even new pipe-grade PVC releases phthalates, but it's only toxic to adult humans at low doses. Oh, and it's super toxic to infants. And we're only talking about irreversible liver damage and reproductive damage and breast cancer and thyroid issues and type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Nothing serious. In 2008, George W. Bush signed a law that prohibited phthalates from toys and virtually any product that touches children. When a Bush is signing a law that cuts into oil industry profits, you should probably pay a little attention. But remember, the process of making records is pretty much unregulated. They use lead, barium, cadmium, all of which are known to cause death. A lot of fucking death. Maybe a few of you after watching this are freaked out and you're thinking about throwing away your records. Well, don't do that, because if you think this stuff is toxic just sitting around, wait till you find out what happens when it's cracked, burnt, or simply left to slowly biodegrade into the environment. Many landfills won't technically accept them. Also, do not throw them into your recycling bin either. No residential waste management company or service will recycle them. It's literally too dangerous. Actually, if you search for how to dispose of vinyl records, you'll just run into sites that tell you how to cut them into shapes and make decorations, or telling you to give them to somebody else. I'm going to be entirely honest here, if not boldly frank. Every single thing that I've released on vinyl has sold out entirely. I've made a lot of money selling records, and I have outstanding financial offers up front from distributors who want to re-release my albums in that format. My answer to them has been and still is that if they can find and pay for a vinyl plant willing to press the records using recycled or recyclable polymer, they can repress whatever music of mine that they like. Audiophiles are my most valued customers, not because they have prestigious playback equipment, but because the side effect of investing so much time and money in that equipment is a person who lends their undivided attention to the music they listen to. For the longest time, I thought, hey, if vinyl records encouraged listeners to pay more attention to their music, then so be it. But it wasn't until I was standing in a storage room stacked full of boxes and labeled packages of my own records waiting to be shipped out that I actually realized how much was being wasted in this whole process. All of the information in that entire room could be stored in a sonically superior format using less physical space than the naked eye could even see. So in my career, it puts me in a funny position. People want a tangible keepsake and are willing to pay good money for one, but everybody involved in that transaction knows that it's not necessary, but rather an ornament or decoration for their collection. I'm not selfless. This is about me. I don't want the final form of my music to be hydrochloric acid or a slow degassing of toxic chemicals, and I've lost a lot of money and traction sticking to that principle. When I released Piety of Ashes, my last full-length album, I made a special edition that came with a bunch of collectible but unnecessary things, and I put a lot of work into making it carbon negative. And yeah, that's a buzzword, but at the end of the whole process, it means that I took something from a landfill and repurposed it. And you know what? It was fun. I got to design, source, and hand make something far more personal and collectible than a mass-produced vinyl record. And it wasn't even all that difficult. They actually sold out in the first 24 hours, and then they offset the environmental damage caused by shipping them to my listeners. I contributed more unnecessary bullshit to the world, but I actually can feel good about it. So if you're a record label, a band, or a musician, why aren't you doing that? You put so much time, money, and effort into writing, performing, recording, and promoting an album, but your creativity stops with the medium itself? You're okay with some giant manufacturing plant putting your project on queue to complete that last vital step? And if you're an avid music collector shelling out all this money, Why aren't you demanding that? Why aren't you demanding something more personal and collectible? This video has been full of bad news, but the story of vinyl is not over. If vinyl collectors simply and loudly refused to buy more records until a safer, recyclable, and more environmentally friendly alternative was used for their production, how long do you actually think it would be before manufacturers stopped using PVC entirely? I'd give it a year. The value of vinyl is not lost on me. There's something sacred about dusting off an old record, putting it on a mechanical turntable, dropping the stylus into the groove, and listening to the music in the consecutive order in which it was supposed to be heard. But the sacred thing is not the disc or the turntable. It's us music lovers taking a break from our hectic days and just closing our eyes, relaxing, and actually listening to the music. It wields the power of bringing our minds and imaginations to new places. It gives us chills and makes us recall distant memories. That's why we love it so much. And that's the magic that's starting to become rare in 2019. But the good news is that you don't need polyvinyl chloride to do that. All you need is your ears, your mind, and some self-discipline to set the time aside for it. And hey, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time to hear me out on this topic. If you learned anything, or if you liked what you saw today, subscribe to this channel. There should be some links down below to things like my Instagram, to things like my Bandcamp. I don't have a Patreon and I don't use affiliates. However, if you want to support me in some way, go check out my music. Thanks again for watching. Bye.